Om, 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 Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahano Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvina Vaditamastu, Mavidvisha Vahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om, may the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto thee, unto us, and to all your beloved children everywhere. Hari Om Tat Sat. Dearly beloved, make it so. So welcome all you who have come this evening to our Wednesday evening class on the book Realizing God, a collection of Swami Prabhavananda's talks. So powerful. Swami Prabhavananda was recognized as a realized soul. And so these are the utterances of a voice of the eternal teacher. So these are the things that Swami Prabhavananda spoke from the podium of either the Vedanta Society of Southern California in Hollywood or Santa Barbara. It's very interesting how Nalini or Edith Tipple assembled this book. If you get a copy, you can read that in detail. It's well worth your time. So, please let us proceed, dear.
Okay, Brother Shankara. Good evening and namaste, everybody. I'm feeling much better, so I can read. Our topic today is on page 71, Realizing God book, which is active and contemplative life. That is the topic. The degree to which you enjoy the bliss of God in this life will determine the degree to which you will enjoy the bliss of God after death. There is a very false idea prevalent amongst many followers of many religions that heaven is to be attained, that we find God after we die. But if we study the source of any religion, we shall find that the truth has been brought out that heaven is within ourselves and that it has to be attained here and now. If in this life we have not been able to overcome hatred, jealousy, and passions, when we die, the death of the body, we shall not be able to overcome them. Wherever we go after death, we carry the same mind, the same consciousness with us. I shall try to explain to you in short the Hindu theory of evolution, which brings out the ultimate end and goal of every being on earth. You see a huge tree. That tree comes from a very tiny seed. Our theory is that the whole of the tree is in the seed. What we find in the effect is in the cause. In the process of evolution, there is no extraneous substance that gathers, but what is already in the cause unfolds in course of time. At one extreme, we find in this universe dull, dead, inert matter. At the other extreme, we find a Christ, a Buddha, an illumined seer. There is no difference whatsoever between a Christ and God. There's no difference between an illumined seer who has attained unitive knowledge and God. Not the least bit of difference. In the Upanishads, we read, a knower of Brahman becomes Brahman. That is from Mundaka Upanishad. Knowledge of God means unity with God, becoming God. Therefore, it stands to reason that God, which we find unfolded in a Christ or a Buddha, exists completely in the minutest, dull, dead, inert matter. In the vegetable kingdom and in the mineral kingdom, there is that infinite God. By that is meant eternal life, infinite consciousness, abiding happiness. That is God. It exists in a potential form everywhere, but remains covered with darkness. In the mineral kingdom, there is just darkness. But when we come to the vegetable kingdom, we find that though matter or darkness predominates, there is certain release of consciousness. The plant can react. When we come to the animal kingdom, we find that consciousness predominates, but there is no self-consciousness, no intelligence. When we come to human beings, we find self-consciousness evolved, but the human is a slave to matter, to darkness. In the illumined seed, or a Christ or Buddha, we see that infinite consciousness infinitely released. Along with that is attained eternal life and infinite bliss. The illumined seer transcends the self-consciousness, or ego, which limits infinite consciousness. The sense of ego is wiped out and infinite consciousness becomes released or unfolded. Any comments, Brother Shankara? You want to make any purport?
Yeah, this is all just the most fundamental truth that is being given to us, that there is nothing else but consciousness, whether it appears to us in our ignorance as inert matter or as a Christ, matters little. That's simply an expression of our limitations. It doesn't have anything whatsoever to say about the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter is that everything is the divine being. There is no other being, there is no other consciousness. Our ignorance is what covers these truths, and spiritual practice, slowly and slowly, allows us to uncover or discover these truths for ourselves. That's what's being told to us. And it is, if we take it seriously, we, of course, are greatly motivated to become wise and fulfilled rather than limited and unfulfilled. Anything else from anyone about anything that was read or what was just said? All right, dear, please read on.
Now, the condition for this unitive knowledge of God to release this God from within us, the birth in spirit, as Jesus calls it, or the awakening, as Buddha says, is to unite our mind with the spirit. In other words, contemplative life, the life of union with God, is the end. But we find that the natural tendency is to unite our thoughts with the objective universe because the senses are outgoing. That is how they have been created. The mind is attached to the senses, and so as the senses go out, the mind also goes outward into the external world, forgetting the kingdom of God which is within. Further, the natural tendency is to seek fulfillment through activities and life in the world. If we understand that the goal is to unfold the Godhead within, and about that our religions are in complete agreement, then we can easily understand that activity or active life is not the end, but that contemplative life in union with God is the end. Why then does the mind become attached to the objective world? Because through ignorance, it accepts the shadow of life, the appearance of life as real. Through ignorance, that infinite God within remains covered. The mind gets a reflection of that consciousness, of that happiness, of that eternal life, and wants to realize it. But the mind does not know that it's already within, and so it tries to find it in the objective world through the senses. This is life on the plane of the ego, which arises when there is forgetfulness of God within. It obstructs our vision of the reality. Try to understand what the objective world is. It is an appearance. Appearance cannot exist without something behind it. As you understand what there is behind the appearance, you will find that God alone exists. You see, you cannot blind your eyes or numb your senses and sense organs. That would not be religion. That would not be growth. Try to find out how God is the ground of all this appearance and how God is the reality within you. When you understand that, go into the external world and work. Be active. Use your senses and sense organs. But all the time, remember that under all circumstances, at all times, in all places, in everything, you must see God and God alone. That is the end.
That right there is the entire message of the book Divine Grace, which we are studying on Saturday.
That's right.
I'm going to ask you to read that again.
Sure.
This is a tidy summary of what Swami Ranganathananda was getting at when he delivered that talk in Perth, Australia in 1978. Just exactly what Haima just read. That there is nothing else besides the divine presence. So please read that again, dear.
I will. Try to understand what the objective world is. It is an appearance. Appearance cannot exist without something behind it. As you understand what there is behind the appearance, you will find that God alone exists. You see, you cannot blind your eyes or numb your senses and sense organs. That would not be religion. That would not be growth. Try to find out how God is the ground of all this appearance and how God is the reality within you. When you understand that, go into the external world and work. Be active. Use your senses and sense organs. But all the time, remember that under all circumstances, at all times, in all places, in everything, you must see God and God alone. That is the end of this particular topic, active and contemplative life.
Well done. Well, it certainly does end up with a very tidy summary. Anything that anyone would like to add from their own wisdom or experience, or any concern or question that anyone would like to raise?
I
Brother
will.
Shankara.
Oh, go ahead, Sunil.
Thank you. I have a question about consciousness. So, is each individual, is each being a separate consciousness which is emanated from the Supreme Consciousness, or like whatever I have understood from Advaita, we are not we are the reflection of the one Supreme Consciousness. So I'm kind of confused. Are we separate consciousness, but part of the bigger consciousness, or what is your take on that?
Well, the answer is yes. We are both. We are individual consciousnesses because that's how we're created. Otherwise, why would there be 7 of us on the screen right now? We are an individual, but it is a reflection. It is a reflection that we are experiencing within this antakarana, this body-mind complex, of the one consciousness. As Vivekananda said, there cannot be 2 consciousnesses. That would start an infinite regression. So there can be only one. But certainly, it would be just hypocrisy if any of us were to pretend that it didn't seem at this moment that we were somehow a separate awareness. That's the word that I like to use for what we experience. We experience an awareness that is the reflection of the capital C consciousness. So does that answer your question?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Cindy, did you have something?
I did. I forgot what it was.
Okay, well, that's fine.
It'll come back to me maybe.
All right. Anything else from anyone else?
I have a follow-up on that. So if we are individual consciousness, what is, according to you, God has divided these 8 billion human beings and billions of creatures into separate consciousness? What would be the purpose of the supreme power to do that?
Well, we as has been said over and over again, we can't really ask that question. When Swami Prabhavananda was asked, why does this happen? Why does Brahman do this? He said, well, the answer is very American, because it can. There isn't, it's not within the power of the finite mind to understand the purposes of the infinite mind.
It is like the subject and object, right? Object cannot try to understand the subject himself.
Right. Well, if indeed, and there is argument among the wise about this, as to whether there is any real purposefulness to it or not, or whether it is simply the divine experiencing itself in these 8 billion human beings, but not to any goal or purpose, simply that, just the divine experiencing itself. And certainly, this is the testimony of many saints, that this is what they have found when they found the divine. They found that the divine invited them to experience itself and themselves along with the divine. So if you look in that book, Love Poems from God, you'll find that many of the saints express that particular point of view.
Thank you. Thank you. And that is whatever you said, it actually, Deepak Chopra also explained pretty much exactly on the same lines. So thank you.
Well, I'm glad that I agree with Deepak Chopra. But it is not me that is agreeing. This is simply a reflection or an echo of what I have learned from the profundity of the eternal teachers that have spoken over the years. Swami Prabhavananda, Swami Swahananda, Swami Sarvadevananda, so many others. December 2nd and 3rd, if you come to the Vedanta Center in Atlanta, you'll find another spokesperson for the eternal teacher. Her name is Pravrajika Rajaprana. And that will be quite a remarkable experience for those of you who've never been in her presence. On January 6th and 7th, Swami Satyamayananda from the Seattle Ramakrishna Mission Center will be here in Atlanta. Again, a voice and face of the eternal teacher. Well worth your making the effort to come and be in his presence and take his darshan. Anything else from anyone?
Something which what Sunil was asking and Brother Shankara, you were talking about, and like I said yesterday too, is that the time frame when we look at, we're talking about millions and millions of years, and this Brahman, which is whatever the manifested universe and unmanifested universe, if we talk about, it's so vast and so it's infinite basically. So these little things which happen in it, they're just like a blip, and I mean that question often comes to me when we see around what's going on, and just it's so crazy. But there is no definitive answer, but I think we can just make a guess. But it's the time frame you're looking at is so vast and expand, and anything can happen in it. It's just a little bit for human beings. Even if you go a little deeper into ourselves, a lot of people I've talked to, and including my experiences, that we do come across the knowledge of past lives. And so if you just look at ourselves, we have been born and reborn again and doing all what we had to do. Actually, there was a very interesting story this afternoon I was listening, and I think it's a very good I'll share. So what happens was, Prahlad, he is born, and within 20 years or so he realizes God. He's born in Brahman. And so there is one monk who is he says, how that happened? I've been sitting here all these years trying to practice, and I'm not getting anything. It's been years and years. So Narad, he, which is the divine messenger of among the gods, he takes this question to Vishnu, and Vishnu says, what you do is you take all the rishis in a big boat and go towards north, and you'll find the answer. And so he goes and tells them the gods that Vishnu has said this, and so they get into a boat and they start sailing in this big river towards the north. And they come across a huge mountain, and then the Vishnu has said that when you ask any question to this boatman, he will answer, and that's the answer you will get. So they go and they see a huge mountain, and they say, what is this mountain? And then when they go closer, they realize that it's made of human bones. And they go further closer, and then they realize that it's made of all the human bones and remains and everything. So they ask him, this boatman, that what is this? It's human bones. What is this? Such a huge mountain. And so you don't know, this is a very world famous mountain. I mean, it's a story, but I think they try to put it in a way. And he says, you know what, this bone is, all these bones are of just one person. This is the bones of Prahlada, who has lived and died for all these years. And those are his bones. And they say, then they realize that, oh, okay, so he had lived so many years and lived so many lives. And then he realized that God. So obviously then they are satisfied. But my point is that realistically, we all are reborn again and again. This is, I have talked to quite a few people who have done serious sadhana for years and years. And my own experience that we are born and reborn again. And so if you look at the timeline, it's so complicated. Why are we, I mean, it's so I just wanted to share this thought.
Well,
there's no definitive answer.
It's interesting to note, however, that Sri Ramakrishna came to put a stop to this. This being born again and again. He came to unchain us and set us free. That is the purpose of his coming. That's what it says in Breaker of This World's Chain. Vivekananda wrote about him. And he said, I am the refuge. Take refuge in me, and you will not be born again. And this is what is told to us by these voices of the eternal teacher, these Ramakrishna mission nuns and monks. They will tell us that when you take initiation from the Ramakrishna mission, that there is a guarantee that at the end of this lifetime, you will be liberated. So we don't all have to create a mountain of bones any greater than the one we have already created, like Prahlada. This is the, if you read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, which we're doing on Tuesday evenings, you'll find that this is what he says over and over. And he sends Vivekananda on his mission to the West to convince people that they can overcome this dualistic way of thinking that leads to lifetime after lifetime. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I think Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, it's if you realize Brahman, that is the end of you won't be reborn again. The only way to stop the birth and death is to realize the self-realization. That's Brahman.
Yes, and that's what Sri Ramakrishna offers.
Exactly.
So that we don't have to do it painfully, birth after birth after birth. He offers us this knowledge of Brahman. And if we don't attain it through our spiritual practices before the moment of death, it will be given to us by Thakur Ma at the moment of death. And Sri Ramakrishna actually witnessed this in Varanasi. He actually saw it happening at one of the funeral pyres there. That in one ear, Shiva was whispering the mantra of liberation, and at the other, on the other side, was the mother untying the knots of the heart, so that the person was free.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
This is the great gift. This is the great blessing and joy of uniting ourselves with Sri Ramakrishna. And for that matter, Jesus Christ. You know, he said, know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Those who drink from my mouth shall not taste death.
The kingdom of heaven is inside you, right? That is the Brahma.
Exactly. It's not somewhere else. And it will be revealed if you pray for it to be revealed, if that is your yearning. Anything else from anyone? All right, let us all yearn.
Okay. The
Yeah.
next topic, you want me to move on, Brother Shankara?
Just one moment.
Okay.
We all yearn, particularly if we all yearn together as a small congregation of 8 people, it makes a difference. It makes a difference. We can feel the love and concern of the divine presence flowing through us, and wishing the best for each of us who appears here on the screen. So yes, dear, please read on.
The next topic is the self. Our whole life in this world is centered around I, the self. I want this. I want to know that. I seek such and such things. I'm happy or unhappy, and so forth. Yet, very few of us inquire into what this I is, what this self is. What is the desire for this that seeks for that? At one time, Albert Einstein made this wonderful remark. If you ask me to explain the nature of this universe, I can do it. But if you ask me what is here, I do not know. In the teachings of the Upanishads, we find this truth brought out. Know the self alone. Give up all other vain talk. Mundaka Upanishad. In every religion and philosophy, we find the discussion of the nature of the self and its relation to God. Generally speaking, I might say that there are 3 main schools of thought: dualism, qualified monism, and non-dualism. If we go to any religion in the world, we shall find that it falls into one or the other of these 3 schools of thought. Let me point out that they are not contradictory, but are different stages of spiritual unfoldment. The supreme reality, the supreme truth, is realized as the experience of non-dualism, no matter to what religion one may belong, and no matter whether one begins as a dualist, qualified monist, or non-dualist. But concerning these schools of thought not being contradictory, Sri Ramakrishna quoted an old verse: as long as I consider myself a physical being, thou art the master, I am thy servant. When I consider myself an individual being, thou art the whole, I am thy part. When I consider myself as Atman, I am one with thee.
Please read that again.
Yeah. But concerning these schools of thought not being contradictory, Sri Ramakrishna quoted an old verse. As long as I consider myself a physical being, thou art the master, I am thy servant. When I consider myself an individual being, thou art the whole, I am thy part. When I consider myself as Atman, I am one with thee. So
Now,
much.
this is the answer that Hanuman gave to Rama
That's right.
when Rama said, "How do you think of me?" These are what this old story that Sri Ramakrishna was paraphrasing is the story of Hanuman's answer to Sri Rama. When I think of myself in my ordinary consciousness, you are the master and I am thy servant. When I am in meditation, I think of myself as part and you as the whole. When my meditation is accomplished and I am in samadhi, I see that I am thee and thou art me. So this is why there's no contradiction in these three positions. It is simply, as was said, an unfoldment. An unfoldment. Anything else from anyone while we're stopped? Okay, dear, please read on.
There are some common points between the three schools of thought. The first is that they all believe in a personal God, the creator, preserver, and destroyer of the universe. And there is the common belief in what we call divine incarnation, that God incarnates as a human being. As we read in the Gita, which is the authority for all schools of thought, when goodness grows weak, when evil increases, I make myself a body. In every age, I come back to deliver the holy, to destroy the sin of the sinner, and to establish righteousness. When we say that God incarnates, it's not once, but in many different incarnations. It is the same God who incarnates in different forms to suit the needs of different ages. Non-dualism, however.
Hold on for just one moment.
Yes, I can read that one more time if you want, Brother.
It's not, yeah, God incarnates in many different times, many different places. It's interesting that if you go to the spiritual heritage and history of the Andes and of Mexico and of the southwestern United States, you'll find that there have been incarnations of God. And these incarnations of God bear the same marks and teach the same truths. They teach them, of course, in the language and in the metaphors of the people to whom they're speaking, just as they always do. But this statement of Krishna's, this great statement of Krishna's, that I make myself and a body and come among you to restore the holy, to destroy the sin of the sinner, and reestablish righteousness. It happens around the world. So Any comments or questions from anyone about that? All right, dear, please read on.
You want me to read that one more time, Brother Shankara? That particular,
Why not?
do you want me to? Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. There are some common points between the three schools of thought. The first is that they all believe in personal God, the creator, preserver, and destroyer of the universe. And there is the common belief in what we call divine incarnation, that God incarnates as a human being. As we read in the Gita, which is the authority for all schools of thought, when goodness grows weak, when evil increases, I make myself a body. In every age, I come back to deliver the holy, to destroy the sin of the sinner, and to establish righteousness. When we say that God incarnates, it's not once, but in many different incarnations. It is the same God who incarnates in different forms to suit the needs of different ages. Non-dualism, however, does not limit itself to the ideal of a personal God, but also accepts an impersonal, attributeless Brahman. Of course, there are not two gods, one personal, another impersonal. As long as we see this universe, as long as we think of God as endowed with the power to create and manifest his power, then he is a personal being. But when he withdraws this power unto himself, and there is no creation, that is known as the impersonal Brahman.
And this is the state of awareness that people come to when they do experience this aham brahmasmi, I am Brahman, that there is no creation, that there never was any creation. This is the extreme position of the Advaitist. Nothing ever happened when Brahman's dream began. Brahman said, as quoted in the Chandogya Upanishad, the Brahman said, I am one, I shall become many. Nothing happened. It was the dream of the day of Brahma, which is a dream that lasts a long time and then is replaced by the night of Brahma, in which the gunas are all in perfect equilibrium and there is no manifestation. These are the descriptions given to us by Vivekananda of these two states. So, but that is a very difficult position to come to, this real non-dualistic sense. Anything else from anyone? Okay, please read on, dear.
It is the same God that appears as personal and impersonal. Then again, Sri Ramakrishna pointed out that he is beyond, that no one can define him. He is inexpressible. He is indefinable. You see, when you say impersonal, you are also limiting him. When you realize God, you go beyond all scriptures. It is said in the Vedas that we have to reach a state where the scriptures become no scriptures. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that everything has been defiled through the lips of man, but there is one truth, the truth of God, that has never been defiled because it has not been expressed in words. His name is silence. I'll read this one more time, Brother Shankara. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that everything has been defiled through the lips of man, but there is one truth, the truth of God, that has never been defiled because it has not been expressed in words. His name is silence. The Vedas say, thou art that. What is the true meaning of thou? And what is the true meaning of that? If we take them in their literal, superficial meaning, Brahman, that, and Atman, thou, have opposite attributes, like the sun and a glowworm, a king and his servant, the ocean and the waves. Their identity is established only when they are understood in their proper significance, not in a superficial sense. Atman, referred to as the individual soul associated with Maya, is not one with the personal God. The difference between personal God and the individual is that personal God is associated with his Maya, that power to create, preserve, and destroy, and he is the master of his Maya. Whereas the individual soul is also Brahman, associated with a part of that Maya, but is subject to that Maya. The individual soul cannot be identified with personal God. Take away Maya from Brahman, take away Maya from the individual soul, then Atman, Brahman and Atman become one.
A vegetarian diet for you. Give me a couple minutes, okay?
Somebody's background we are hearing. If you're not muted, please mute.
A problem maro.
Okay, thank you. Now let us try to understand what this individual self or ego is and how there is Brahman, the true Atman within us. The individual self is nothing but Brahman, identified with what is known technically as sheaths. Is that the correct word, Brother Shankara? Sheaths?
Sheaths.
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 The individual. Okay. Yes. The individual self is nothing but Brahman, identified with what is known technically as sheaths. When this identification arises, when there is the sense of ego, I, as a separate being. Now, of course, how this identification has come about is a matter of deep philosophical discussion. In short, I shall try to explain by saying that it is only a statement of fact which is experienced by everybody. It is a universal experience, this ignorance and identification. One may have encyclopedic knowledge and have studied all the scriptures of the world, yet this identification continues to remain. Let me point out the big difference between light and darkness. You cannot mistake light for darkness and darkness for light. Similarly, there is the distinction between I and this. There's no mistake about that, but through some inscrutable power, we identify I with this. For instance, you are not the body, you are changing. The actions of the body are objects of your experience. And yet there is the identification with the body. I am sick or I'm healthy. I am fat or I'm thin. It is a statement of fact, this ignorance. Buddha was very pragmatic. He said, why bother about how this ignorance came about? It is just like a man struck by a poisoned arrow. Someone comes to take it out and heal him, but he says, I will not let you take it out unless you tell me who shot the arrow, what kind of man he was. Was he dark? Was he fair? Was he tall? Was he short? You see, it's useless. You're suffering. You're in ignorance. And there is a way out of this ignorance. It cannot be explained because as long as we're in ignorance, it is only hearsay to us that we are in ignorance. We do not really
That
comprehend.
is such a powerful statement.
Yes.
As long as we are in ignorance,
Mhm.
it is only hearsay that we are in ignorance. So it's only when we begin to emerge from the ignorance through spiritual practice, through the grace of the divine in response to our prayer, that we begin to get a sense, oh my God, I've been making this mountain of bones lifetime after lifetime because I was living in ignorance. And so be it. And once again, we can't ask why. There's no answer to why. Why was the ignorance created? As Sarva Priyananda said, Brahman did it because it can. No other answer will do. Anything else from anyone while we're stopped?
Isn't that because of our prarabdha karma, Brother Shankara, that I could be ignorant for a long, long time, and then suddenly I could wake up from that ignorance and then start realizing?
We can explain it that way. We can explain it because of our karma.
Our
That
previous.
presupposes that we have some real understanding of karma. Swami Prabhavananda, in his book, The Principles of Karma, says we don't have any understanding of karma at all, really. So it's just a term we can use, like the scientists use the term dark energy or dark matter to try to at least give an identification for something that they understand exists, but they don't understand what it is or how it occurs. The same thing is true of karma. So we can say that, and it's perfectly true that it is our prarabdha karma, and that we wake up, as Sri Ramakrishna says, we begin the process of awakening at exactly the right time.
Thank you.
It is at the invitation of the divine and by the grace of the divine that happens. It's the third of the three graces. The first grace is human birth. The second grace is the desire and the yearning for liberation. And the third is the appearance of the qualified teacher who ignites that spark of yearning within us by being the truth so that we can see the truth embodied in front of us. This is why these great teachers and their apostles come to us, so that we can see these things. It's why it's so good to make the effort to be in their presence, because they do demonstrate the truth of being to us.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
How are we doing for time?
We have 7 more minutes.
Wonderful. Good. Okay, read on.
Okay, we do not really comprehend that we are in ignorance. As long as we are in ignorance, there's no explanation. If you find yourself pure, free, and divine, one with Brahman, that question does not arise. Now let us try to analyze what this true self is. As mentioned before, the self, according to the Upanishads, is encased by 5 sheaths. The sheath of a body, the sheath of what is known as vital energy, the sheath of mind, the sheath of intellect, and the sheath of ego. According to Western psychology, mind, intellect, and ego are all called mind. But in Indian psychology, they differ because of their different functions. I will not enter into that, but I must point out the difference between Western and Eastern psychology. According to Western psychology, mind is intelligent. Intelligent is its inherent nature, and mind is identified with the soul or self. In the East, mind is non-intelligent. Only the pure consciousness of the Atman reflected upon the mind makes it appear to be intelligent. You see, I can move my body, not because of the power of the body itself, but because of that pure consciousness behind it, because of Brahman, God. In the West, we find philosophers at a loss to explain how the mind becomes unconscious. If consciousness is its inherent nature, it will always remain conscious. The inherent nature of fire is heat. So it loses heat, it's no longer fire. So if it loses heat, it's no longer fire. According to Indian psychology, the mind is just like iron placed in fire. It's hot. But that iron away from the heat and it's no longer hot because heat is not its inherent nature.
Now, this is so important for us to understand. We appear to be intelligent and capable of action only because we are in contact with the divine being. The divine being is what is indwelling within us. We should call it Saguna Atman, Atman with attributes, and it is what powers us. The moment that departs from the body falls down and is what we call dead. Of course, the secret is it was never alive. It was never alive. It is, as Sri Krishna points out in chapter 2 of the Gita, nothing more than a garment. And when it is worn out, when, as Haima was saying, when our prarabdha karma is expended for this incarnation, for this embodiment, the body will fall down, or, as Krishna says, be cast off like a worn out garment. And if it's auspicious to do so, we will take another garment. We'll add to our pile of bones. But this is why Sri Ramakrishna came. It's time to put a stop to this. Why is it a time to put a stop to this? There is an explanation about the end of the Kali Yuga and the beginning of the Golden Age. But, that's really beyond our ability to understand it. It's simply words that he and Holy Mother and Vivekananda said. We don't know really what the Kali Yuga is, or what the Golden Age is, or when the one will really be over and when the other will be fully begun. So we just do our best to manifest the attributes of Saguna Atman and move forward. As was said in the active and contemplative life, we then, once we are aware of who we are, we proceed with a right goodwill to work. And we work in the spirit of service. As Balakrishna so often points out to us, our life, once we become aware of what's going on, more or less, we become karma yogis. We serve selflessly to the best of our ability. Anything else from anyone? We're coming to the end of the hour. Anything else from anyone that needs discussion?
Brother Shankara, time is up. There is only 3 lines to end this paragraph. I'll
Please-
finish
Please
right there,
read,
and then we can close it.
please read them.
Okay, Berkeley said, in sleep and trance, the mind exists not. There is no time, no succession of ideas. To say that mind exists without thinking is a contradiction. That's the end of that paragraph, and I could end there, leave it
Very
there.
good. All right. That's where we'll take it up next time.
Okay.
Could I share a quote real quick that I saw today?
Do.
It's I don't know why it surprised me, but it's from Erwin Schrödinger, and it says the total number of minds in the universe is one. In fact, consciousness is a singularity phasing within all beings.
Quite amazing.
Please read that again. And note, those of you who don't know, Erwin Schrödinger is one of the early and most accomplished quantum physicists.
Hmm.
So please read again what he said there.
It says the total number of minds in the universe is one. In fact, consciousness is a singularity phasing within all beings.
This another one of the great quantum physicists of the early days said, commenting on how Newton saw the world and how quantum physics was insisting that the world be seen. And it very much aligns with this Schrödinger quote. He said, this man, it's beginning to look as if the world is not a great machine, which is the Newtonian way of looking at things. Not one great machine, but instead one great thought. One great thought, which, as Schrödinger said, is phasing in each human being. Now, phasing, brings up the idea of vibration, which is one of the things. Somebody's got their mic open. We're hearing the background.
I think it's okay.
Hmm?
I think it was Shailesh. He is muted now.
Oh, okay. So we'll let it go at that. Anything else from anyone before we close? All right, dears. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we go forward, secure in the knowledge that the mother and father that are introduced as we open our prayer to start these sessions, that mother and father has us in their secure and loving embrace. So may that be a truth for us. May it be something that we rely on. And may we be well and in bright spirits.
Thank you, Shankara.
So until Saturday, when we study the book Divine Grace, please remain true to your spiritual practices. If you continue them day to day, they provide the fulfillment that you're looking for. If you don't, well, then you'll have some other kind of fulfillment, but it's very transitory. Anything else from anyone before we close? All right, good night, dear. Good night, dears.
Good night. Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Talk with you again soon.